Police officers who have arrested other police officers. What happened? My third month on the force, I learned that Detective Reynolds ran this precinct like his personal kingdom. Everyone walked on eggshells around him because he had connections all the way up to the commissioner's office. As the new guy, I tried to stay invisible, but Reynolds had other plans. He cornered me in the locker room one morning and said, "College boy, huh? Let me teach you how real police work gets done." Reynolds was a 15-year veteran who'd never faced consequences for anything. He had this way of bending rules just enough to stay under the radar while making life miserable for anyone who crossed him. Other officers would warn me quietly that questioning Reynolds was career suicide, so I kept my mouth shut and tried to learn the job properly. But riding with Reynolds was like watching a masterclass in corruption. He'd pull over expensive cars in affluent neighborhoods and somehow always walk away with cash donations to the police benevolent fund. He'd confiscate evidence from drug busts that never quite made it to the property room. Most disturbing was how he treated witnesses and suspects, using intimidation tactics that bordered on torture. The breaking point came during a domestic violence call at a rundown apartment complex. A woman named Maria had called 911, saying her boyfriend was threatening her with a baseball bat. When we arrived, Reynolds immediately dismissed her concerns and started flirting with her while she was still shaking with fear. He told her boyfriend, who was clearly intoxicated and aggressive, that these things happen in relationships and maybe they should work it out like adults. Maria begged us not to leave, showing us bruises on her arms from previous incidents. Reynolds laughed and said domestic calls were just drama queens looking for attention. He started walking back to our patrol car while the boyfriend got more agitated, yelling at Maria for calling the police. I could see the terror in her eyes as she realized we were abandoning her with someone who'd been threatening her life. That's when Reynolds made his fatal mistake. Instead of following protocol and either arresting the boyfriend or staying until the situation was resolved, he decided to teach everyone a lesson about wasting police time. He walked back to the apartment, grabbed Maria by the arm, and shoved her toward her boyfriend. He told them both that if he got called back here tonight, he'd arrest them both for filing false reports. I watched this woman get pushed back into immediate danger by the person who was supposed to protect her. When I tried to intervene, Reynolds told me to get back in the car and mind my own business, but I couldn't leave Maria there knowing what might happen when we drove away. I told Reynolds we needed to follow department policy and either arrest the boyfriend for domestic violence or wait for a supervisor. Reynolds completely lost it. He started screaming at me in front of both victims, calling me a rookie who didn't understand how the real world worked. He said college kids like me were ruining law enforcement with all our book learning and political correctness. Then he made a critical error. He grabbed Maria again, rougher this time, and when she tried to pull away, he shoved her so hard she hit the wall. That's when I realized I wasn't just watching corruption anymore. I was witnessing assault and battery by a police officer against a domestic violence victim. Reynolds had crossed the line from bent cop to criminal, and I had a duty to act. I stepped between them and told Reynolds he was under arrest for assault. He laughed and said I was crazy, that no one would believe me over a decorated detective. But our body cameras had recorded everything. Reynolds tried to grab my weapon while I was reading him his rights, which added resisting arrest and assault on a police officer to his charges. I had to physically restrain a fellow officer who was actively committing crimes against the people we were supposed to protect. The ride back to the station was the longest of my career. Reynolds kept threatening my family, my career, promising that I'd never work in law enforcement again. When we arrived, the entire precinct went silent as I walked their golden boy into the booking area in handcuffs. Some officers looked disgusted, others looked terrified that their own misconduct might be exposed next. The investigation revealed that Reynolds had been running protection rackets, stealing evidence, and covering up serious crimes for years. Dozens of cases had to be reopened, and several other officers lost their badges for enabling his behavior. Maria testified at his trial and thanked me for not abandoning her when she needed help most. Reynolds got 8 years for corruption, assault, and violating civil rights under color of law. The department implemented new oversight procedures and mandatory body camera policies. Some officers resented me for ending the culture of looking the other way, but most admitted the precinct was better without Reynolds terrorizing everyone who couldn't fight back.